Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Expert Insights, Mastering Financial Data, Reporting and Compliance with Advanced Cash Management Tools. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Griffin Hare, and before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We ask that all attendees are muted to minimize background noise. You can submit questions using the Q&A panel on your screen, and we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A session. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please let us know via the chat box, and our team will assist you. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with all registered attendees after the event. I will now hand this over to Ed Berry, who is our host for the webinar today.
Great. Thank you, Griffin. Really appreciate everybody taking some time out today to learn a little bit more about Treasury 4 and our solution set around legal entity management and cash management. Today's focus will primarily be around cash management and highlighting our Cash 4 module. We're going to cover a couple of different areas here, including our advanced analytics and reporting. We'll talk with one of our key customers, Freshworks, Leslie Rayborn and Brandon Lewis, who've recently implemented and onboarded the Treasury 4 platform and understand what they were looking for in terms of a Treasury technology solution and the benefits that they're receiving from that. And we'll talk about some of the other data integrations that are supported in Cash 4. So by way of background and introductions, I'm Ed Berry. My role here is Chief Product Officer and Treasurer of Treasury 4. My background is 20 plus years as a Treasury practitioner, having served a time at Microsoft, Itron, Tableau Software, and Salesforce. And across all those organizations, I've had responsibility for Treasury technology, Treasury operations, and any other fun thing that's been put on my plate by the CFO. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Leslie to do introductions for herself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Rayborn. I'm a Senior Director at Freshworks. I've been here for 3.5 years, leading the Treasury area, starting from the ground up, and then bringing Brandon Lewis, who's joining this webinar as well, on as my team. And we run everything from investments to operations to hedging to capital markets, insurance. We do everything that requires from the Treasury team with a small team here at Freshworks. I have background working at DocuSign, ServiceNow, Palo Alto Networks, just to name a few. And at those same companies, I was handling investments, the insurance, the hedging, and the operations. So I have a deep experience in all areas of Treasury in order to, look at the various systems that we're going to talk about today.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name's Brandon Lewis, and I'm on Leslie's team here at Freshworks. I've been in Treasury for about 7 years, about 3 of which are at Freshworks. And yeah, like Leslie said, we're focusing mainly on cash, insurance, stocks, items like that. So yeah, happy to be with you all today.
Great. Thank you, Leslie and Brandon. Really appreciate you taking the time to participate today. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the support or use of bank APIs, so application programming interfaces for data exchange with your banking partners. And previously, before selecting Treasury 4, you were capturing a lot of that data manually by logging into bank portals, exporting reports, bringing it into spreadsheets, and then manipulating it from there to support your reporting. Can you talk us through maybe a little bit about your historical process, and then talk a little bit about the onboarding of Cash 4 and things that may have surprised you in terms of that integration with some of your banking partners?
Sure, I'll start on that.
No, go ahead.
When we originally looked at the system, we were doing everything in Excel, and that would be tracking the bank accounts, tracking who the account signers on the accounts for FBAR, as well as doing all cash tracking for our reporting to the senior management. And in doing so, it took a lot of time with a very small group. So we looked to bring on a new system that would help us automate some of this process. And I will turn it over to Brandon to kind of walk through the process that he went through of implementing Treasury 4.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I don't want to take too much of the credit here because, like, from the very beginning, Treasury 4 made it really easy to plug things in and get going. Yeah, one of our main banks is Bank of America. They handle all of our foreign accounts, which is a majority of our accounts. And I think all I had to do, and a lot of credit here goes to Griffin, is give him a list of the accounts, numbers and names, and how he wanted them labeled. And then he gave me an email template that I sent out to Bank of America and our other banks. And then from there, they kind of took it and got everything plugged in. So behind the scenes with Bank of America, um, I didn't get involved a whole lot, but it seemed like everything got plugged in within a week, and we were looking at balances pretty quickly in the system.
Great. Thank you, Leslie and Brandon, for sharing that. I think one of the things, maybe backing up a little bit in terms of integration and onboarding, we've all worked with various integrations with banking partners, and kind of notoriously, it's been can be a long process, multiple weeks, if not months. And being able to get your data turned on and brought into the application in 5 business days seemed, really, really exceptional, as well as the ability to pull in 2 years worth of daily account balance and transaction reporting. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of having that deep 2-year historical data set to work with and what that's meant for Freshworks?
Sure. Having that deep, a lot of years of it, or a lot of months, we kind of look at this as in terms of months, historical data, is to help us find trends and also see the trajectory of the cash trends that we see going forward. So it really helps us look back and be able to predict as well as forecast for the future, to be able to see maybe by quarter or by month where we're low or where sometimes we run high, to be able to invest the money. So it's very important to see all historical data for us.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Brandon?
I was just going to say, just to add to that, when it comes to liquidity management, being able to look back and see what are the highs and lows in an account and have it in one place is really nice and easy, and it helps a lot with, converting FX, like can we do it or can we not do it? Having that history makes that a lot safer of a decision to make.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. All right. One of the studies out there in the marketplace is that 80% plus of companies of corporate treasuries see benefit in leveraging technology as part of their overall treasury management process and overall really financial processes within the office of the CFO. And treasury is becoming much more strategic for the organization in terms of not only helping manage liquidity, capital structure, investments, all those typical things, but also becoming a center of excellence around data analytics and sharing insights into liquidity cash flows across the organization. And so as you now have more data coming in, and then thinking about, some of the other data sets that you are working with, maybe talk a little bit about how the benefits of having a broader data set, not just your bank balances, but your investments, and then maybe some of the other data that you would like to work with, or that you envision in the future of being able to pull together into the kind of the overall treasury cash 360 view, as it were.
Right. So for Freshworks right now, our big focus is on free cash flow. And so looking at being able to see the balances on a daily basis, as well as they come in during the day, along with our investment balance, helps us determine what our free cash flow would be for quarter end. And so that's very important for this company. As well as Brandon's mentioned before, we really look at liquidity, and one of our key metrics for management is interest income. So we're trying to maximize interest income from the idle cash. And so this helps us be able to look at everything in a comprehensive view, as well as not only the cash part of it, but able to use a lot of this information, the cash, and tie it to an entity within Treasury 4 as well. And then allows us to spin off from that our FBAR at the year end, or also KYC process, which is very helpful for us in streamlining that and making more efficient. Brandon, anything else to add?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the only thing I'll add is, Excel is a great tool, but I think everyone can agree that it can be cumbersome and extremely manual. And so, finding something that should be simple, free cash flow, can take a day. But when you have something like Treasury 4, that could bring that time down to minutes, maybe minutes, maybe half hour, but it makes it like the amount of time you save is really important for the team and being able
Yeah.
to focus on other stuff.
One more thing to add to what Brandon and I said is it's actually even the reporting part of it has saved us a lot of time.
Yeah.
Not only did this all in Excel, but then we had to do reporting off of that information from Excel and put it into charts. And Treasury 4 has helped us tremendously make that an easy process when it comes to reporting and passing that information to management.
Yeah, 100%.
Great. I'm glad we're talking about the benefits of reporting. You know, we started out with data, the integration, automation of that coming in, but then really what are the outputs? And then part of the driver of that outputs and reporting is the idea of categorizing your transactions, because Leslie, you talked about understanding free cash flow for the organization and looking at the number of transactions that Freshworks has going in and out across all of your bank accounts and being able to categorize that and then report on that. Is that giving you deeper understanding of your cash flows? You know, whether it's from an AP or AR payroll perspective, and then to an entity or even account level perspective?
Yeah, it does. It really allows us to, when we see things that are high or really low that we weren't expecting, we can drill down to see what's impacting those numbers. And that's very helpful, right? To understand when we're trying to land a free cash flow number for the quarter, maybe some payment hasn't come in that we were expecting. Well, that gives us the information to pass that on to the team to get that payment processed. Or vice versa, if we see collections coming in a lot higher than was anticipated, do we have other payments that we can push out to land the number?
That's great. Thank you. Brandon, anything you want to add on to that?
I don't have much to add. I think, yeah, that covers most of it. But I will say though, after using the system and kind of focusing on getting categories set up and looking at all our transactions, I definitely have a better understanding of how everything is set up, across our accounts and entities, and which transactions are set up the same and which are different, and how can we improve, distinguishing this is AP, this is payroll tax, etc. And so there's going to be a lot of efficiencies going forward, just setting things up better because I have that insight and I'm looking at everything in more detail now.
Great, great. Next slide, please. So kind of talking through your use case, you had mentioned before that you were manually downloading data, manipulating it into spreadsheets or Excel, which is our treasurer's favorite tool, Excel, because of the flexibility, but not necessarily best solution when it comes to automating. So, thinking about some of the savings and efficiency gains for Freshworks in leveraging automation and the Cash 4 integration across your banking partners, your investment accounts. Maybe talk about some of the benefits that you've seen there.
So right off the bat, I would say the minute it came in, as Brandon said, pretty quickly, we were able to see the balances. And then digest all that information that was coming in. And what Brandon kind of alluded to is also, as we're tagging them, understanding some payments that we didn't know were happening in the account, and becoming more familiar with them as Freshworks gets bigger and we add more people and we add more types of expenses. We kind of lose sight of what's coming through that account. So that helps us also be able to add to our forecast and forecast those out better. And like I said before, with the free cash flow, able to anticipate what's come in and what hasn't come in is also helpful. So just purely setting up this system has allowed us to really dig in and become more knowledgeable about our cash flows, our forecasting, how we've set up things. Is it efficiently set up in terms of how cash moves throughout the company and what we can do better. So just the overall setup itself gave us so much information. So we're looking forward. We've just kind of dug in to try to figure out the reporting part of it. And already we've been able to develop reports and share those as dashboards with upper management. And they're amazed at what we can show them, where they can dig in and see things in real time. If things are what's going on in one of our entities, say in India, why is this cash so high? They can dig in and see that part of it's investments, some of it's sitting in operations, and maybe some transactions that they aren't familiar with either. So it allows upper management to kind of dig in and explore on their own as well through these dashboards.
Yeah, I agree. And two things I'll add is one is like a simple question about, hey, did this transaction go today or yesterday? Like Treasury 4 offers a path of least resistance to see if that happened, right? Instead of having to log into a bank portal, go to the reporting section, pull a report, set the dates, etc. I can just go into Treasury 4, one login, and then I click the right tab and I'm there. So that's nice, right? Because usually those questions, they're easy, but there's a little bit of like, okay, let me dig in there real quick. And the other piece is, again, reporting to executive management, having those charts just readily available and set up. That saves me a lot of time because, Excel, again, it's manual. There's a lot of inputs that are required. I can go into Treasury 4, input a date in a box, and then boom, the charts are there. Easy.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I'm glad you're getting benefit and you're able to automate a lot of the formerly manual tasks and workflows that you were previously doing with through spreadsheets and bank portals. That's great to hear. Next slide, please. So we talked about the different process improvements and that you've received. Maybe would you highlight maybe the most key or most significant improvement overall for Freshworks and for both of you specifically?
For me, it's the reporting.
Yeah.
To not have to ask my team if we have enough cash in an entity as somebody presents something to me. And oftentimes I get information that I can't pass down to my team, such as acquisitions and other information as it's not readily available beyond a certain set of individuals. So to be able to just see the cash balances and see where we are with the investments is very helpful without triggering some response of why I need to know certain information.
Yeah, I agree. It is the reporting for me as well. I'm sure we'll get to this a little later, like the beta platform and all the charts you can create and graphs and all that stuff. But being able to take your data and create those charts and customize and have as many as you want. It could be a snapshot of time. It could be over time. That's amazing. I mean, I've been tinkering around in there, and I'm looking forward to doing more. And what we have so far has been a big time saver for us. And that time gets put to use in other ways that is more beneficial, more efficient. So yeah, reporting for sure.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. All right, next slide, please. So talking about the Cash 4 module that you're using of the Treasury 4 platform, really Cash 4 is meant to automate the import of account balance and transaction data, allow customers to categorize transactions through a hierarchy, starting with cash flow class, then type, subtype, and GL account. And that cash flow class really, I think, is a differentiator from the Treasury 4 platform, because that's really saying for every single transaction, this is an operating, financing, or investing cash flow, which then allows our customers like Freshworks to be able to track and monitor their operating and free cash flow on a daily basis. And so being able to have that automation in place and then being able to research those transactions, and then really highlighting the value of reporting, because you're bringing in the data, we're enriching the data through transaction categorization and reconciliation, and then allowing it to be reported on in whatever way our customers need to support their organization. And in terms of the automation, we're API first, so we integrate with a number of banks via API, from Bank of America to JP Morgan, HSBC, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and others, but also support physical file or host-to-host integrations with banks as diverse as Silicon Valley Bank to Stifel Bank, Banner Bank, Umpqua, many others in the United States. So, and then furthermore, bringing in that investment data from different platforms, money market trading platforms. So we're getting early into the kind of reporting and analytics side. We're talking about the API integrations, being able to look at data at a point in time, but also understand trends, which you've talked about, and understanding the flow of funds through your organization, balance trends, whether it's by account, currency, entity, total organization, and then being able to present data however you want or your organization wants. So some of the key areas there, and we're really excited about our reporting platform and how that's benefiting our customers, which we're going to demonstrate here shortly. Next slide. So really, the idea of that data coming in automatically, enriching it, making it available for reporting, and really thinking about some of the challenges around time, right? What we're seeing kind of globally is the extension of time in terms of 24/7 payment clearing in different countries. We know that the U.S. Fedwire system is going to go to 24/7 clearing. And so I think there's a little bit of a industry rethink here that by extending time, it's giving us more time to work with, but it's actually compressing, because what we're now seeing is that there's just operations happening almost throughout the day, around the clock, especially for global companies like Freshworks. And being able to have that automated visibility, that insight into your organization, really help you, as Leslie mentioned, understand your cash flows and be able to hit certain targets or metrics there. And so really the data is giving you decision-making capabilities. And that's really what we're trying to drive for. The automation, it is removing manual processes, and then the insights helping with decision-making. Anything you'd like to add to that, Leslie and Brandon?
Yeah, one thing that we did here that was very helpful once we put Cash 4 in place was we started repatriating or sending dividends back from all our subsidiaries in Europe, because we had cash building. And so it was very helpful to use that information that we inputted from Bank of America, the historical information, to go back and look to make sure that we weren't building up the cash artificially and then it was going to be used. We wanted to make sure that we understood it, how the trends were going in those entities, to be able to bring back the excess cash back to Inc. in order to invest it.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing that came to mind was just FX and managing that liquidity and then reducing the FX effect. So yeah, the system's definitely helped us with that.
Great. That's some great benefits and insights there. Thank you for sharing that. Next slide. So talking a little bit about Cash 4, we're really focused on the analytics, right? The data coming in, enriching it, categorizing it, and then presenting it through different various dashboards, reports, and driving analytics and insight. We've talked about the connectivity, APIs, host to host. The reporting kind of goes hand in hand with the analytics, positioning, the ability to understand what your cash position is up to the day, and then what your expected flows are, projected flows. And we've talked about our multi-level transaction categorization. One feature coming out here shortly is going to be our transaction reconciliation capability, which I'm assuming that Freshworks will have a strong interest in being able to leverage. So taking your expected activity at the bank and then matching that up with that reported activity, and then driving into forecasting. And so we'll talk a little bit or show a little bit about our forecasting capability. And then in our roadmap next year is building out in-house bank solutions. So that's future, not yet available, but that's something that we're driving to for many of our customers have needs in that area. So I will go ahead and do a quick demo of Cash 4. Thank you, everyone. I'm in a demo environment here. And so this is just a quick preview of Cash 4. Its landing page here is our DDA account balances. So being able to see all your balances across all your accounts that are reporting in. You'll notice that we tag all of the banks by a parent counterparty, so that you can see and report on your cash at a parent counterparty level. Our default view is account currency. We also bring in FX accounting rates, so you can have a reporting currency view, and all the data that you see here is exportable and filterable. Similar on the transaction side, so we have our reported transactions coming into the platform, and we never alter any of the source data coming in from the banks. However, we do enrich it through transaction categorization, and this is where we can see the categorization assignment of cash flow class, type, subtype, the definitions of those, as well as the GL account that the transaction is posting to in the accounting system. A couple of key features here is the ability to go in and override or manually assign categorization if needed, as well as keep notes on certain transactions, and then be able to send that information out to other system users or team members inside of the organization. The categorization construct is looking here at our cash flow categories, so starting with class, then cash flow type, and then cash flow subtype, with the system telling the user the number of transactions and rules that that particular category is being used against. And then rules, we work with our customers to build up their categorization rules. We will precede those with a set of default rules based on some of the data that we've collected. But we have a rules builder screen here, and our customer success team takes a very active role in getting our customers up and running quickly with transaction categorization, which goes back to why we highlighted the ability to get in that historical data. So in the case of Freshworks, where they were from Bank of America, brought in 2 years worth of daily balance and transaction data, that really allows that categorization to shine. Also bringing in investment data, so bringing in integrations with different money market portals, whether it's Morgan Money, Goldman Sachs Mosaic, BlackRock Cash Matrix, State Street Fund Connect, bringing in that investment data. And then all of that is coming together in Analytics Studio. And so I'm going to hand the screen over now to Cooper Strout on our team, who's going to give a little bit of a preview of Analytics Studio. Okay, Cooper.
So what we're looking at right here is just a set of our kind of custom or default reports that you get just from the beginning. What I'm going to cover is really what the narrative story about what's going on with your cash and different perspectives that we're taking. So the first one is we have our account balances report. This just answers the question of what is the cash on hand right now. And you can see here, it's just kind of more like board slides, very general idea. But then the more as you kind of get into it, you'll start to ask more questions about like, well, why has it changed? So why has it changed? We have a different report for that, which is our direct cash flow report. And you can see here that we've got the balances from the beginning, and then the kinds of changes that have occurred, and then the closing balances at the end. And as you see it, you can then maybe have questions about like, well, what made up this amount right here? As you click that, it interacts with the transactions details table below, so that you can, which is sorted by reporting currency descending, so the most relevant transactions at the top. You can see it has got the transaction details. The general idea is just answering the question of why has my cash changed, and just a really easy way to identify what occurred, when, and why. So we have different perspectives here that you can take. You can look at it by quarter, by month, by end of week, with all these filters above. So then we've got the last part, which is more of where is my cash going to be in the future? So this is more of getting into our forecasting bit, which we utilize several different models. One of them is the machine learning. And you can see here, it's got the activity of actuals, and it starts to smooth out, because in this case, we don't have a ton of data to make it more and more refined. But the idea with machine learning is as the more data gets integrated into the system, the smarter it gets, and the more detailed it becomes in the output. So you can see here, we've got these ups and downs. There's some kind of pattern there, and the machine learning has identified some patterns there for the 13-week forecast. And you can get into the details of that here from the calculated opening balances, and then to the calculated closing balances below. So then I'm going to try to show how you would answer other off-the-cuff questions that don't necessarily get covered in the default reports that you get in Analytics Studio. So on this call, I heard earlier that, well, we want to see cash by entity. So I'm going to highlight how we've made the data models easy enough to work with, that you fundamentally just need to know Treasury and have a question. And so in this case, the question is, how much cash do I have in each of my entities? So you can see here that, I'm going to maybe highlight this. You can see here that the tool that we're using is called Sigma, and it is really just a set of, it's basically functioning like Excel. And what you do is you create tables, and then you create pivot tables. And so I'm going to create a pivot table here, and I'm going to connect it to the data model here. Tables and data sets, workspaces, data models. Let's go to cash for. Let's get our table cash balances. And you can see here that we've got all the columns, everything that you could ever want to know about your data in in Treasury 4. So I'm going to select that, and it's just ready to be pivoted on. That's the idea that we're going for here. So I've got this, and I'm going to create a visual on top of that. Let's create a pivot table here. I'm going to create new region. And I'm going to create another one called code. And then here on the values, I'm going to create another called USD total cash here. So then I'm going to format this all in app. Don't have to export it to Excel to do any of this. And so let's go to currency there, and I want to filter it by a specific day. So let's go to date. Let's just pick a day. I don't know how for our dummy data, so let's click that. And there you go. So there is your cash by entity region and entity code. So you can quickly answer the question of where's my cash at in which entity in which region. And then you can create multiple visuals off of this that show it in a bar chart like any of the charts we have before. And then once you're done, you can just save it. And then now it is in a list of reports that you can share within your organization in Treasury 4. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Cooper. So we're really big believers in empowering our customers, our users to interact with their data however they choose to interact with it. That includes us at Treasury 4 having pre-built dashboards and capabilities, as well as allowing our users to build their own analytics and dashboards within our application. And so we're seeing a lot of great use cases and creativity from our users like Freshworks, where they're saying, oh, I want to look at data this way or that way. I have some questions around that. And so, which then is allowing us to then think through, okay, how do we start bringing more data in to make that available for our customer base? And so being able to expose all of that data is, I think, a real differentiator for Treasury 4 and our users, and allowing them to interact with their data however they choose to do that. So great demo there, Cooper. And I know, Brandon, you've been building out some analytics on your own in our new reporting platform. Any comments you'd like to share around that?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed working in it. I mean, like I said before, like being able to customize a chart or a graph to exactly what you need is amazing, right? And staying out of Excel the entire time is a plus as well. And the Treasury 4 team has been willing to like hop on a call with me as needed as I'm running into issues, learning how to do it, which isn't that it is pretty easy, but you hit a snag and it's nice just to have someone there willing to help you. So the process of learning it and understanding it was pretty quick, and then being able to actually use it and have charts you can use followed pretty soon after that. And yeah, like I said, this is useful stuff too. It's not just like a random chart that we're making. This is items that will go into executive slides and important reports.
That's fantastic. I think one of the things that we're excited too is the ability within the reporting platform to be able to schedule reports that can be pushed out via email to both system users and non-system users like executive management, so they can get these different pre-built dashboards sent to them automatically, including the ability to attach supporting PDFs or even Excel files with additional data if that's a need there. So a lot of flexibility in that reporting platform.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I've messed around with the emails a little bit, and that's something I'm going to spend some more time on just to get in a good place, and then we'll definitely start using that.
That's fantastic. It's good to have you as a power user. So thank you, Brandon. So I know we're coming up on the time here on our webinar, and I will just open it up to Q&A. And we have had a couple of questions come in. And so I think maybe I'll read a couple of these off. And Leslie and Brandon, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just sharing your thoughts around that. So the first question that's come in is, how do advanced cash management systems improve visibility across different legal entities in multinational organizations? And I would add on to that, have there been any challenges that have come up or surprises that you've seen?
In terms of being able to see your cash globally is very important. And I think the biggest piece for me with Treasury 4 was the data, that we could use our data any way that we wanted and build out reports, as Brandon has done for Treasury or for Freshworks. was very important to us in selecting the system that we used in order to use our data that came in a way that made most sense for Freshworks, as opposed to a standard format that may work for other companies and not necessarily give us the information that Freshworks needed to be able to be more efficient.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you were alluding to Entity 4 and that module that we also use, but that has also been extremely helpful for us. I mean, like an example is like the family tree, I'll call it, of your subs and the parent entity, just having that as it grows or God forbid shrink, like you can see what it is up to date. So that's really nice. And then having all the documents you need, you know, to reference for each entity as you go through the quarter and quarter end and all that. It's been really helpful for us.
That's great. I think you're referring to the org chart and the account
the org
maps
chart.
and Entity 4,
Yeah.
and those interactive real-time visualizations, and bringing all that data together so that you can see kind of your org structure plus the accounts that each entity has, and then the flow of funds across those accounts, and really understanding that movement. So glad that Freshworks is using that capability there. Maybe next question that's come up is, as regulations continue to evolve, how can Treasury professionals ensure their cash management processes remain compliant? And so I think this is probably alluding to maybe some of the challenges in international cash management around either repatriation or controlled currencies or controlled countries. So maybe Leslie and Brandon, any thoughts around that in terms of regulatory impact on cash management?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest regulatory entity is India. And so this has been very helpful for us in terms of moving cash over to India and giving a lot of feedback to the bank in terms of the amount. And maybe when we aren't aware of a payment that goes from one entity to the next or vice versa, oftentimes we get notified by the banks that AP has done these types of payments. And so we will go in and be able to check that out for Bank of America India and provide them the information pretty quickly. Instead of going into the bank portal and trying to find the transaction that occurred, we can find it pretty easily and quickly within Treasury 4.
That's great. All right, last question here we'll end off with is, what are some of the common challenges Treasury teams face when implementing a cash management solution and technology, and any insights on how they can be overcome?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, I mean, Leslie might have more experience with, implementing these systems, and Treasury 4 was the first time I've had to do this. And just based on what I had heard from Leslie and other people, it can be a pretty tedious process. It takes a long time. You have to bring in consultants, everything's sort of like a la carte, right? Like what you get. And so I was not necessarily expecting that, but that was kind of like what I had heard. And then that was not the case, right? With Treasury 4 and Griffin and you and everyone else. It was very straightforward. You guys definitely were like, there was a lot of help the entire way with working with the banks and getting things done. And Leslie and I could really take a step back and just answer things here and there and let you guys kind of drive that process, which was really nice. And the last thing I'll say is the access to data, right? Like, it's our data and we have access to all of it and we can manipulate it however we want. I don't think that's always the case with these systems.
Yeah, and one other thing to add kind of on that data, us owning our own data that Treasury 4 allows us to do. I've implemented, as Brandon mentioned, other Treasury systems that we always had to find a Band-Aid solution using some kind of module that existed already. And with Treasury 4, we found, working with you guys, that if we had a situation particular or unique to Freshworks, we could work with you to modify the reporting or to modify how things came in order to give us the proper picture for our reporting.
That's great. Yeah, we're big believers in the value and power of data and wanting to empower our customers and users with data. So thank you for that call out there, Leslie. and Brandon. Well, I think that concludes our webinar today. So really appreciate you taking the time to walk through Freshworks' use of the Treasury 4 platform and both at Cash 4 and Entity 4. And just thank you for just being a tremendous partner in our journey as well as we continue to build out our capabilities. So thank you so much, and really appreciate your support and time today.
Yep, thank you for having
Yep.
us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Happy to be here.